Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that I see all the time online. I see trainers talk about it, and all these people, and they try to pretend like you need some sort of pre-activation for your glutes, and again, these are certified personal trainers saying this, which is one of the reasons I don't believe in personal training certifications. So many people who are certified promote such garbage nonsense, and they can't even get people jacked or strong. This is a problem. I'm a full-time strength coach. I get people to 500-pound squats for a living. So to me, some of this gets ludicrous if these people have any sort of certifications and can just come up with this sort of insane nonsense as professionals. And one of the things is this idea that it's possible for the glutes to not fire correctly or to be a primary mover on a squat or a deadlift. And here's the point we have to make with that. Anyone who's making such a claim has failed basic biomechanics, basic physiology. There is no way that it is physically even possible or biologically possible for this to occur. Okay, and just because you're not feeling something doesn't mean anything. It means absolutely nothing. I don't feel my glutes when I deadlift 600 pounds. Now, if we were to hook an EMG up and measure it, what do you think would happen? My glutes would probably be lighting up off the charts. Right? It would probably hit numbers that if the average researcher was looking at as far as that activation goes, who's never tested a strength athlete, it would probably be the highest number they've ever seen in their entire life. Okay, it would be on the activation on the EMG, on those electrodes, it would read a higher activation in my glutes than they have probably ever seen in their life on anything. Because I'm an elite strength athlete. I don't feel my glutes. Seriously? You see the problem there when people start saying it's about feeling them? Well, no, you have to look at what muscles are involved. Which muscles get utilized in a movement is based upon biomechanics and structure, not what you feel. And again, I'm not saying that the feeling doesn't ever matter. Okay, there can be a place for things like what people will call mind-muscle connection, and I don't like that because it sounds very woo-woo and new agey, and how many crystals do you have in your collection? Do you believe in fairies? That's where you're going with that term that has that feel to it. But we could also call it internal cueing, right? Because that has been studied in the lab, and we do know that when internal cueing is used in certain muscles on multi-joint exercises, it can have a very small but statistically significant difference in activation. Now, does that mean it's a difference between turning on and off? No. It's something like a couple of percentile difference. Okay, is that enough to actually matter for hypertrophy or development? We don't know. Maybe not. That remains unproven. Is it actually enough to matter physically in the training response? We don't know. The answer there is possibly a little bit. Okay, that's the best answer we have. But when we're at the point where people are saying, well, your glutes aren't being activated, and therefore they want you to put a hip circle on, or they want you to focus on them, well, no, that's not going to matter a lot. Will it possibly matter just a tiny amount? Yes, but you're also doing that then at the expense of overall development and performance. What do I mean? Look at the same data that has determined that looked at external cueing. What is external cueing generally showed? All around increase in every muscle involved, right? Rather than the one muscle you're focusing on, external cueing tends to make everything light up more. What do we mean by external cueing? Pushing or pulling harder and faster. Okay, instead of just moving the weight, focusing on things like squeezing the bar as hard as humanly possible. Bracing your core as hard as possible, and then moving the weight explosive and fast. Intentionally trying to move the weight explosively. All right, now when that's looked at in the same studies, what does it find? Well, it finds that all the muscles go up. And in some cases, more than the focus on the mind-muscle connection or the internal cueing does. Sometimes it actually exceeds it, but it will do it for every muscle involved. So realistically, what should we really be doing? Instead of focusing on these other things to try to make that muscle work more, we need to be focusing on making everything work. Because that's why we do multi-joint exercises, even if you're doing them for hypertrophy. Let's not even get into the strength, which is my specialty. Let's just talk about developing the muscles. Well, that's why we do multi-joint exercises. You don't squat to build your quads or your glutes. You squat to build your quad, your glutes, your adductors, possibly your calves. Right? You're trying to do all of those things. Of course you are. Same with deadlifts, benching, so on. You're not benching just for your chest. We could argue the data tends to support that a flat bench may be actually the best overall chest developer, subject to debate. You're not doing it just to develop your pectorals. You're doing it to develop your pectorals, front delts, triceps, right? That's why we're doing multi-joint exercises. So we come over to this idea, though, that people have that, well, the glutes aren't firing. Well, it's not biologically possible, okay? The laws of biology and biomechanics dictate that you can't physically perform a squat or a deadlift without the glutes being a primary mover. In other words, it's not even a case of, well, they're a secondary muscle, they're a dynamic stabilizer. No, they are directly involved. And in fact, if something were to happen to where your nervous system cut off firing your glutes, or one of your glutes, because people are like, oh, my left glute. You'll literally see trainers pushing this. If this were to happen, you would miss the lift. Okay, you would collapse under the load. The lift would stop. So if you got down into a squat and you're even on the eccentric and something happened to where your nervous system couldn't fire your glute correctly, you would just get stapled under the weight. It would crash to the floor. Okay, or do we understand this? If the glute is not firing at a very high level, you will miss the lift. Your 10 rep max will be heavier than your 1 rep max. So a set you could do for 10 reps is probably just going to stop on the first rep if this happens. Okay, so this stuff is nonsense. It's complete and utter nonsense so that people can try to sell you silly devices, can try to get you in the gym wasting time because they don't know what they're doing. And they don't know what to do or how to teach a squat or anything else correctly. So they're like, well, we'll waste a bunch of their time doing these pre-activation exercises for 20 minutes before you actually do your training session so that they can have you come in and do just a little fluffy stuff and because they don't know how to teach anything or program anything. All right? It's bullshit. Or they're just too ignorant to know any better. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.